Alright, let's tie a Barr Emerger. This is obviously a fly from John Barr. I think this was his first commercial pattern. And I believe this fly is actually older than I am. This fly's been around for a long time, since the 70s. And it's a plain, simple little fly, but man, it sure does work. And it's easy to tie, too. So I've got a 2487, Tiemco 2487 here. And I'm going to use some iron gray A-dot uni thread. Iron gray is a darker slate steel gray color. It's darker than their natural or regular gray, and it matches up, darkens the body up a little bit better. So I'm going to take this thread and start it about 3 eye lengths back from the hook eye. And I'm going to wrap all the way back to the bend. Just get a nice smooth thread base. My thread started to spread out a bit there. I want to come about halfway down the bend. And for the tail or shuck on this fly, this is an emerger pattern. And this is the wet version, as it's known. So I'm going to use some brown spade hackle fibers. So this is a feather off the edge of a dry fly cape, the outside edges. And I'm going to take 8 or 10 of these fibers. I'm going to take this little clump and tie it in right at the bend and come forward over the butt ends. Now I don't worry about the length at all. I'm going to come forward over the butt ends back to about where I started the thread, and then I'll trim off what's left. You can see that tail's plenty long. It's going to be cut to length. For some reason I always cut the tail to length later, so I'm going to leave that there for now. Now the abdomen I like to use olive brown superfine dubbing, but it's sort of a mix of brown and olive. And I like the superfine because I can dub it down very tightly. The original dubbing that John used and that we used in his book is a very coarse dubbing. And to be perfectly honest with you, I don't love it. So I use the olive brown superfine. I can control the shape a lot better. It's a more modern material. And I suspect John probably would have used it himself had this been around back in the day when he came up with this fly. So I'm going to use the bare thread between the dubbing and the hook here to work back. And I want to time it so my first turn of dubbing comes around right at the bend here. And then I'm going to work forward and build a skinny but tapered abdomen. And I want to come up to a couple eye lengths back from the hook eye. I've actually got just a touch more dubbing than I need here, so I'm going to loosen some of this up. Now this is one of the catches with superfine dubbing, is it's hard to get off once you've got it on there, so you've got to be a little diligent about how much you put on in the first place. So I'll pick that extra bit off. I could use that last little bit to just sort of finish out this taper here. And then I'm going to run my thread back up to about 35 or 40% of the way back. And that's where I'm going to tie in the wing case. Now, if you wanted to do a flashback Barr Emerger, what you would do is take a piece of pearl or mirage tinsel, medium size. I like mirage myself, and I'll tie this in right on top. Now the wing case itself is going to be dark dun spade hackle fibers. So I've got a dark dun rooster neck feather here. I'm going to peel off about a dozen fibers or so. I'm going to tie these in right on top. And I want as much length out of those as I can get. So I'm going to trim these butt ends short. And I want to wrap down over those butt ends to just behind the eye. Now you can see I've got about an eye length worth of bare space behind the eye. I'm going to reserve that for later. And now I'm going to dub the thorax. So you can use gray muskrat dubbing or gray beaver dubbing or gray superfine. But in any case, you're not going to need very much of it. We've got a lot of the bulk that we're going to need already built in with the overlap of the abdomen and the wing case and flashback tie-in, so it's not going to take much dubbing here. I want to dub that dubbing down tightly. And I'm going to start this dubbing just behind that index point, about 1 eye length back from the hook eye. And I want to dub up this hill, up to the base of the wing, or wing case, and sort of round that thorax off so that when I run out of dubbing, I've got bare thread right up behind the hook eye. Now at this point I find it nice to take and tilt the hook up a bit. And what that'll do is just give us a little bit of an advantage with gravity working forward for us in these next few steps. So I'm going to grab all of those strands of spade hackle and I'm going to pull them forward over the top of the thorax, and I kind of want them to flatten out a bit. And I'll get a couple turns on there to anchor that down. I can turn that and you can see there's a nice stripe across the top. Let me get a little better focus there. Nice stripe of that wing case across the top. Now I'm going to tie my flashback off. So I'm going to pull the flashback right over the top of that. And catch it with a couple of turns. And I always fold the flashback back one more time and catch it, just to anchor that flash in securely. Now for the legs, I'm going to take my thumbnail and push it right up against the base of these fibers coming out over the hook eye. I'll kind of splay them out a bit. That makes them a little easier to get a hold of. And I want to divide them about in half. I'm going to take half back on the far side, and I'm going to hold the far side just a bit high and come over it with the turn of thread to catch those right in line along the side of the shank. And I'm going to grab the near side and hold it just a bit low and catch it with a couple of turns. Now I'm going to come in and build my whip finish right over those butt ends, and it's a relatively exaggerated head here. Sort of blocky. Tie that off. Clip my flash. And then the legs, I'm going to just push back, and I'll bring my scissors in from the back side here and trim the legs just a touch longer than the wing case. Tilt the hook back up again, or the back end back up again, and the tail is about a shank length or so, maybe 3/4 of a shank length long. Come in with our head cement. I'm going to use Solarez here because it's so easy. I use this little fine brush. This is Solarez Ultra Thin. And I'm just going to hit that thread head with just a tiny little coat. I want to make sure I get all the way around. This little brush makes this real easy. And then cook that for just a few seconds. That is a UV set head cement. And there is our finished Barr Emerger. An iconic fly, been around a long time, from one of the best minds in fly fishing. That's a tough fly to beat. One of my favorites for a long time. It, especially in the original version, which is the non-flashback version, this fly is really pretty plain. In the case of, I think that's one of the reasons that it works as well as it does, is there's nothing flashier or significant about it. It's just a drab little bug, and boy does it work. That is one of the best flies you can have in your box. If you don't have some, you should go sit down right now and tie some up for your box. That's a great fly on any tailwater or freestone. Very simple. This is the Blue Winged Olive wet version. You can also tie a PMD version. The only variance in the PMD version is it uses light Cahill 8/0 unithread for the thread, and pale yellow dubbing up here for the thorax, as well as pale yellow hackle fibers for the wing case. The dry version is the same things, tied on a 101 dry fly hook, a straight shank hook. And that fly is meant to actually be fished up in the surface film as a dry fly. So that's something a lot of people don't know, that there's two versions of this fly, the dry and the wet. The wet seems to be the more popular of the two these days, but that is it. Hope you like it. Go tie some up. Show John Barr some love.